Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Risk Takers and Trailblazers, Women in Insurance. This podcast is all about learning from transformative women who've made amazing business career moves and providing support for those navigating through this journey. I'm here with my favorite podcast squad, Jen, Tanya, and Diane. And we're thrilled as well as very honored to have Heather Masterson, President and CEO of Travelers, joining us today. For those who don't know, here's a snip of Heather's present and past accomplishments. I will say I am going to read it because I do not wish to miss anything from your illustrious career, Heather. Heather joined Travelers in 2015, that's Travelers Canada, as its Chief Operating Officer and became the company's President and CEO a year later. Prior to joining Travelers, she was President and CEO at Taunton Insurance Group and a Senior Executive at Hub International and AIG. Heather has served on the boards of several industry associations and not-for-profit organizations, including past chair of the Insurance Bureau of Canada. Heather is a global ambassador for Insurance Supper Club, served on the board of Treasury, and is the former board member of the General Insurance Statistical Agency and the Women's Brain Health Initiative. Heather has received notable insurance industry recognitions for her leadership. Most recently, she was named one of the 2023 Insurance Business Global 100. Congratulations.
Woo.
An award she received also in 2021 and 2020. Look at that, a tri-peat. The Formable Global 100 spotlights outstanding professionals who are making a positive impact and driving change in the industry. Heather was named winner of the 2018 Insurance Business Canada's Women of Distinction Award, a recipient of the Hub International Chairman's Award in 2014, and an honoree of the 2013 Business Insurance Women to Watch. Welcome, Heather. That is one illustrious career, and I am very thankful that you've taken the time to join us today.
Yeah.
We are ecstatic and grateful for you joining us, that is for sure. Before we start, I have to add that Heather's team of leaders speaks so very highly of yourself, and that is part of the reason as to why you are here. We also are grateful for those individuals that helped us at IBA to have the conversation with you to join our podcast. So welcome, and I'm very excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for thinking of me and including me in this. I think what you are doing as women is phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. And I'm humbled to be here. This is terrific.
Thank you. We're humbled to have you. So I'm going to just jump right into it, and as I said, it's your team that has spoken very highly of you, and I know a little bit about your background, having been a traveler's broker for many, many, many years. Too many to add up sometimes. But let's talk about really quick about your early career and what inspired you to come into the insurance industry.
Well, thanks for the question and thanks for that amazing introduction. I do just want to say that you've made my day, and I'm glad that this is being recorded so I can play this back to my kids.
Exactly.
Right? We all feel that.
Right.
So, it's really interesting. We ask the question to people like, how did you find insurance? And often we'll hear people say that they fell into it. And I'm not sure that I can say that. I come from a family of insurance brokers, and my dad was an insurance broker. So I literally grew up listening to insurance around the table when I was a kid. And what that looked like was my father telling stories about bad things that happened to good people, his clients, and how he was going to help them. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you're a hero, not just because of my dad, but because what you do in the community and how you help families and businesses. Mm. And I'll never forget, we were away on a family vacation, and my dad received a phone call, and it was from somebody who needed his help. And whatever we had planned for that day, I come from a family of 4 kids. We all knew that the plans for that day were off. And we were totally okay with it because we just knew that someone else needed my dad, and he was the fixer. He was going to make it okay. And so I refer to him as my hero, and I'm sure many young women refer to their fathers as their hero. But what I really loved about this industry when I joined was that, as it turns out, there's a lot of heroes in insurance. Mm-hmm. If you think about what we do each and every day, we're motivated to get up, to get dressed, to go to work, to make a difference, and to take care of our policyholders,
Mhm.
to take care of our clients and make sure that they have the coverage that they need. And when things go bad,
Mhm.
which they sometimes do, that we're going to there to take care of them, their families, their businesses, and return them to the position that they ought to be in. And
Nice.
so it's hard not to be proud of this industry if you think about it from that perspective.
For sure, we talk about that often sometimes, and you're right. We always jokingly say we just fell into it, but
Yeah,
once you're in it, you realize that there is so much more to it.
yeah.
Mhm.
We were just speaking to Julie Skeleton not too long ago. She's coming up on our podcast, and she specifically said, we need to change that thought process and that statement, I fell
Mm,
into it, and really start to educate and champion the industry that we're all in and what it does for anybody and everybody, the
yes,
relationships we build, the opportunities that are within our industry. It
yes.
really is one of those stigma things that we just need to change.
I totally agree. Like, think about the contributions that insurance makes to the economy. Clearly,
Yeah.
without insurance, the economy is going to stand still. There's a direct correlation to GDP and the insurance industry.
Yeah.
Uh, think about our ability to expand and grow as individuals.
Yeah.
We are given the ability to do that through insurance and to mitigate the risks that we otherwise would take.
For sure.
It's so intertwined in our lives, but yet I'm not sure that we do a great job telling our story, right? And laying the
No,
brand. I think we do a nice job within the industry, but not necessarily
I
outside the
absolutely
industry.
agree with that. And I don't
Yeah.
think we do a good enough job. There's great English. A great job outside of our walls to champion what companies like Travelers do from a charity work and the giving back that they
Mm,
do, right? I
mhm.
honestly don't think, even from brokerages and every channel, I really don't think that that's even championed enough
Right.
to say how much we give back and what we do. Look at the catastrophic losses we all go through, nationally and carriers that are there. So
Right.
I
Good
agree.
point.
There's lots to be done for sure. What
Yeah.
about some key milestones or turning points in your career that you can share with those that are listening?
Yeah, so I got into the insurance industry because of my family. And then once I got a taste for the industry, I used the saying that I was hooked. And I started on the insurance company side as a trainee. And then I, spent quite a bit of my career on the company side, but have had opportunities with the insurance brokerage side, as you know, and running a large MGA in Canada for a while. And it was interesting because there is inflection points in my career or, milestones where the inflection point was, okay, what do I need to do differently? How do I need to think about advancing my career? How do I think about advancing my personal development? And I think the two can be, nicely tied into each other. So, you know, any thoughts around advice that you would give or discussions that others might be interested in hearing? I would go to those inflection points in your career where you're like, okay, I have an opportunity or
Mhm.
I need a change. The change
Mhm.
is obviously something that we should be leaning into and viewing as positive.
Okay.
Mhm.
But I have an opportunity. So when do I decide that I go for it? Or when do I decide not this one? And so I would say the milestones that I've had have been kind of pivoted around that question.
Mm.
So I'll give you an example. As I said, I got a little bit of diversity in my background on the insurance company side, on the brokerage side. At what point in time, when I was with an insurance company, I had an opportunity, US headquartered, I had an opportunity to go to the US and take
Mhm.
on a big executive role, and a role that I was very excited about. But I recognized that the timing wasn't right. And the timing
Mm.
wasn't right because I had a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old at home. And I said to my husband, if I take this job, because he was extremely supportive, if I take this job, it's going to mean one of two things. Either we as a family move to the US or
Mm.
I commute back and forth. And, as we thought through it, it was just like, what are the priorities for me at this stage in my life?
Yeah.
I find a career extremely fulfilling. It's an important part of who I am. But probably the most important thing in my life is my family and being the best mother I can be, and recognizing that that was such a precious point in time. And it was a point in time that I would never get back.
Mm,
Yeah.
Whereas the opportunity, I may or may not get that opportunity again, but I'll get another opportunity again.
right.
I'll never get another opportunity to be the mother to a 2 and a 3-year-old.
Mm.
So for me, that was a really important point in my life with trying to understand, what are my core values? What are my key priorities? And what is it that I really want and
Mm.
need at this stage? And that gets to change and evolve
Mhm.
as
Yeah,
you change and evolve.
Mhm.
So
absolutely.
what you need today isn't necessarily what you're going to need tomorrow. And so that the framework, the pros and the cons, and working through all of that really, led me to how do I look at my life in a way where I want to be fulfilled?
Mhm.
I want to be the best version of myself that I can be.
Yeah.
I want to grow and develop because that makes us the best version tomorrow.
Mhm.
And I do it on a foundation where I'm going to forgive myself if I make a mistake, but I'm
Mhm.
going to try and make my decisions based on having no serious regrets. It's okay to have
Right.
small regrets, but I don't want to have life-changing regrets where, decades down the road, I look back and I'm like, I didn't show up how I wanted to for my children.
Yes.
That,
Mm.
as an example.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've got a couple of examples like that in my career where I would classify those as big milestones, and I'm comfortable with, how it played out.
For
Love
sure.
that because it's that little period of time where your kids are under 5. That's the window that
Yes.
it is a very small amount of time, but when you're in it, we've got a couple of us that still have little ones that are in that window, and yeah, you're right, you don't get that back.
You
And
don't get that back, right?
jobs might come and you feel like you're holding yourself back, to stay in this moment, but it will
Yeah,
pass and you have more of a career after that.
Mm,
right. You have to have the confidence that you'll have other opportunities.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And then
No.
like 10 years after that, I had another kind of inflection point where, travelers came and wanted to meet with me and understand if I might be a good fit for the organization. And at that time, I sat down with my family, with my girls that were, older, young teenagers, and asked them, how do you feel about mom taking this job? And they're like, go for it. And
Nice.
so, you know,
That's so
Oh, that's
nice.
things
amazing.
do come around. Yeah.
I love that it was a family discussion for
Yeah.
Yeah.
you
Yes.
because
Yeah.
it really is a family. It impacts the family and
Yeah.
that kind of holistic approach to
Yeah.
your career. I love that. It's very inspiring because Diane and I do have kids under 5, and it's a daily struggle to balance the career with the young ones because they
Yeah.
require so much of you at this age, and you want to.
I know.
Mm.
Do you want to hear the best advice I received when I was a young mother?
Mhm.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It came from my father. Just very
Mm.
funny. It came from my father. I was literally driving home from work one day. We were chatting on the phone, hands-free, we're insurance. Um, and I pulled into my driveway and I was getting ready to go in and, start the next part of my day, which is
Yeah.
taking care of my young kids. And I, had a moment where I was talking to my dad and I said, Dad, I have to tell you, I feel like I'm failing. I feel
Mm.
like I don't have enough time and enough effort and enough energy to give what I want to give at work. And then I come home and I'm tired and I don't have enough time, enough energy to give what I need to give at home. I feel like I'm failing. And he said, you need to stop that. You need to reframe how you're thinking. So two things. One, control the voice in your head,
Mm.
right? Positive thoughts, and move those negative thoughts into positive thoughts and move the positive thoughts into solutioning. And
Mhm.
number two, you don't have to do it all. Like,
Mhm.
you
Mm,
get to delegate, you get to outsource. And that's true in work. Like, we work in a team. Teams are strong for a reason.
yeah.
Uh, and work ebbs and flows.
Mhm.
And then life also ebbs and flows. And you don't have to do everything. So if you can, package up your laundry and drop it off at a place that's going to wash and fold, and you can go pick it up. And that saves you half a day on a Saturday that you get to spend with your kids. Outsource that.
Yes.
So think of the things where you can rely on your team, rely on your community. It's interesting, right? When women in a community get together or parents in a community get together and they divvy up things like carpooling, like the old saying, it takes a village. We should recognize that, embrace it, and know that you don't have to do it yourself. And you shouldn't. It's much more rewarding doing it with others.
I learned that the hard way too. It took me years to not feel this, I don't feel it now, but this immense amount of guilt around, having a cleaner or the laundry, whatever the solution was, even something, and I struggle with this one still, but even feeling like it's mailing it in to order food, right? And it's just that compounding amount of pressure that really my family's not putting that pressure on me. My husband would be like, great, pizza night. He'd be super excited. you know, he'd probably be more excited about me walking in with pizza than, and so, yeah, it's a good point that we've got to let that stuff go. And I think, you adjust financially to make those things work, and it just pays back in dividends. And yeah, some great advice, and great, and yes, awesome coming from your dad.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we need to all be each other's advocates, though. For women in our industry, we need to have these conversations. And I know, Heather, you're a big champion for the industry as a whole, but also for women in the industry. So can you share with us some of the initiatives that you support and why they're meaningful for you, or the ones that really stand out?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with some of the board work that I've done. And just really enjoying the time that I've been lucky enough to have been able to put forward with various associations. When I was, again, early in my career, a colleague and a mentor of mine, Lynn Oldfield, gave me some very sage advice. And that advice was, Heather, you're investing in your career. You've chosen the insurance industry, and so you need to give back. And volunteering is a great way to do that. So find a place that you want to do it, or find many places that you want to do it, but you'll get personal growth. You'll add value to the association, and you'll meet some great people. And all of that is true. All of that is true. And so, there's so many great things that are going on in the organization, the various associations and the industry. And when I take a look at, some of the women that have stepped into leadership roles and who are either chairing boards or who are running associations, like Celeste Power at Insurance Bureau of Canada. I was the chair of the IBC when Don Forgeron announced his retirement. And so I had the privilege of working with the hiring committee and going through the recruiting process, making sure it was rigorous, making sure that we landed in the right spot, which we absolutely did. We have a fantastic leader in our, CEO, who has been in role for a couple of years now, doing great things for the industry. So I think that was an absolute highlight, just watching a very strong, smart, thoughtful, professional woman ascend to one of our largest and most impactful trade associations in our industry. A number of years ago, several insurers got together and we decided that we needed to take some action around anti-fraud. And, maybe 4 years ago, we decided we needed to level up and okay, what additional are we going to do, and how can it be more national, broader reaching, more impactful? And we, together with a number of companies, set up Equite. And part of setting up a brand new association was looking for a leader. And of course, we found an amazing leader in Terry O'Brien, her and the team that she's built are doing great work against fraud including auto theft, working with government and regulators and um, the industry and auto manufacturers, uh, big jobs being held by women, and being able to contribute to that and support that process has been terrific.
Beautiful.
Less of an industry association, I mean, an association, but one that's geared less for the broader industry and certainly for women would be the Insurance Supper Club. You mentioned that earlier. The chair of the Insurance Supper Club, Sherry Dodsworth, she's done great things. Again, getting a national footprint in place, finding that space for women to come to network, to learn, to find mentors. I think that, again, personal and professional development. So being a part of these opportunities has been tremendous. I just, can't say enough about it. And then within my own company, I have to say I'm very proud working for Travelers. Travelers has obviously given me terrific opportunities. I have been able to, build a leadership team that do great things. I sit at our executive table, I look around that table and I see, 50% women, 50% men, all professionals who are deep in their areas of expertise, who also have broad knowledge across the industry and our organization. And they show up every day with a ton to contribute. So, working for a company that really embraces the notion of diversity and equity and equality, really, really important to find your fit. So I feel like I found my fit, and that has allowed me to, move forward this passion that we all have to make sure that women have space so that they can reach their potential and fairly compete for all the great jobs that are available to us, all the great opportunities that are available to us.
Nice.
I love that. You mentioned that you have a really great table full of intelligent and people that are in their own space. Our industry, though, when you look at it as a whole, it's evolving all the time. There's always so much change. I look back, I was telling somebody yesterday that I used to do applications on carbon paper, right? And that was 20 years ago. That's not that long. It's always evolving. We joke that it's very archaic, and yes, there is a lot still, but it is evolving. How do you find ways to keep up with the trends and adapt to all the changes?
Again, another great question, because there's so much change going on in our industry. I don't know if there's been a time where we've had so much change. I think you need to do things like surround yourself with really smart people and not afraid to not be the smartest person in the room, but to make sure that you've got great advisors and great discussion partners. I think we need to continuously read and stay abreast of what's going on. I also think we need to be comfortable with not having deep expertise in something, but being committed to learning new skills. At my stage in my career, there's opportunities for me to have reverse mentors. So someone from a different generation than I am, different demographic background, who really can lean into the technology that's, continues to emerge into AI. And for me to learn from others and to be okay with doing that, be vulnerable doing that.
I love
So
that.
the growth mindset, I think, is really, really important. We need to, I think we all know that our colleagues and ourselves, we have a certain level of IQ, right? You're doing your job, you're doing it well, you have enough intelligence to operate day to day, to do whatever you need to do to fulfill your role and your responsibility. You also need to have a healthy amount of EQ, like that emotional intelligence. So you can have the soft skills that you can be effective in terms of motivating people and inspiring people to do great things. Today, we also need, equally as important, that AQ, IQ, EQ, AQ, that adaptability, that notion that I'm going to lean into change. I'm going to have that growth mindset and I'm going to evolve. And I'm never too old to do that, as it turns out. I get to reinvent myself over and over and over again. And the only limiting factor, as it turns out, is me.
Yeah.
And then DQ, the digital,
Mm.
right? Making sure that we have a comfort level with the advancements that's being made in our world from a digital perspective. And that's where I would pull in reverse mentorship.
I love that.
Yeah. And I, it's such a good, I think everything you've just said between, the boards and volunteering and then into this is just such a reinforcement of how amazing the industry is and what it
Yeah.
actually offers if you are willing to positively put your hand up continuously, right?
Yeah.
And I just think that's so, I mean, I think some of us are in other industries, right? Tech or marketing and kind of still in the insurance world, but I don't know if other industries have that in the same way that insurance does. But one of the things I wanted to touch on, and you were talking about reverse mentorship, but how important was mentorship to you, coming up or even now, and what is your view on mentorship in terms of helping grow into leadership positions and helping lead other people coming up?
Yes. Mentorship, very important. And we know from the data, it's very important. We know from the data that we have a higher likelihood of success in achieving our career ambitions with a mentor than without a mentor. So I view mentorship as a gift you're giving yourself.
Right.
And regardless of which side of the relationship you're on, like being a mentee or being a mentor are both very rewarding. I think there's different types of mentorship. And, when you're early in your career or when you take on a new role, you should be looking for an operational mentor, somebody who's done the role before, who's done it well, they've excelled, and then they can impart, that knowledge and that training and that development to you and just help give you that leg up. Um, there's also mentors who will play more of an advisory role, help you with setting the guardrails, be your discussion partner, help you understand kind of the lay of the land culturally. What are the things that you need to be sensitive to or aware of? Just that safe place, that trusted advisor who will tell you what you need to hear, especially when it's going to hurt or you don't want to hear it. That's the most important advice to get or feedback to get. And then if you move, out of mentorship and move into more sponsorship. So mentors don't necessarily have to be in your organization. Sponsors are in your organization. Those are the folks that are going to help prepare you and help you. They're going to promote you. They're going to help you find your way in terms of achieving stretch roles, the next role, profiling your capabilities, all of those things. What I love about sponsorship is you may or may not know that you have a sponsor, as it turns out. But when you have a sponsor and you know it, it is just an incredible gift, and it's an important relationship. And it's one that you always need to recognize that you need to always step up and perform and make sure you're doing what you need to do to continue to have that sponsorship.
And do you think, Heather, that you have more than one mentor through your career? Do you think that
Yes,
also evolves as you evolve?
totally. It has to. It has to. There's points in your career where you, like I said, you need that operational mentorship. Like, show me the ropes. You're going to need points in time where someone's going to tell you, okay, you need to be aware of this. You have blind spots. And then you get to a point, I think, where having a discussion partner, that trusted safe space, where you may not necessarily need a mentor, but you do need a safe place to just bounce things off of and make sure that you're coming to the right conclusions and the right decisions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've heard that before in some of our last podcasts where they said they didn't know that somebody was a mentor at the time. And when they
Yeah.
look back in their career, they really can see that that was a mentor for them in a big way. But maybe at the
Yes.
moment you don't know that you're getting that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think of my first boss at what was then Canadian Direct Insurance. And I always think of her because I can hear her voice in the back of my head through multiple things now, right? And that was 20 years ago. She knows it now, but I didn't know it then, like you were saying, Diane, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Heather, going back to what you said about AQ, which I haven't heard before, and I love it because adaptability, resilience, growth mindset, I'm trying to teach my 6-year-old that. I think it's such an important skill to have to kind of overcome challenges and really learn from them. So I'm certain that throughout your great career, you've had some challenges. Can you tell us, like anecdotally, some of the challenges you may have had and what strategies you've used to overcome them?
Yes. So, we were talking about some of the challenges that women in general face. And that's, that's not dissimilar to challenges that I've personally faced. Maternal bias, the fact that I'm a mother, the fact that I openly talk about being a mother. I share stories about my family and my children all the time. I love doing it. It's part of who I am, and I love to hear about other people's families and children. But that doesn't mean that when I show up for business, I'm not serious. It doesn't mean I haven't put the work or the time or the effort in. It doesn't mean I don't prioritize. And I'm going to, choose my family over my career. No, I'm going to balance, and I'm going to figure out how to show up in both places. And sometimes I'm going to be remarkable in one, and sometimes I'm going to lean on my team to help support me. But, as it all ebbs and flows, I'm going to be transparent about it, and I'm going to be extremely committed to making sure that the right things happen and that the business moves forward in a very positive way. So being a mom has nothing to do with commitment for your career.
Right.
Nothing to do with it. Other than the fact that you show that you have a commitment, so you can have commitment to more than one thing. So I think that that's probably, something that we all face at some point in time if we've made the decision to have families. I also, throughout my career at particular points in time, perhaps I've been either in a meeting or working with a team where, your voice at the table isn't being recognized to the extent and the degree that it should be. And so how do you think about that? How do you work through that? Sometimes it's having a quiet conversation. Sometimes it's making a point. Now I'm at the stage where I'm dedicated to making sure that other people have a voice at the table.
Nice.
Now, I'll give you an example. There was a colleague of mine, and that colleague was being recognized for interrupting. So we would have a meeting, people would be voicing their opinions, having a discussion, and she was coming in and interrupting the conversation. And instead of sitting down and having a conversation with her and saying, do you know that this is how you're showing up and this is what you're doing? I took a very different approach. And the approach that I took was, I'm going to start creating space for her. Because if she's interrupting, I think that's a message. She's not getting her voice. And every voice matters, and every opinion should be heard.
Wow.
And if it's not being heard, then I need to, shame on me, I need to make sure that everybody has space. So it's interesting because once I started, creating space by saying, so can I ask you, what are your thoughts on this? Do you have any concerns with this? How are you thinking? The interrupting stopped.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing. I just got goosebumps because I think, I've been on a different level. I was doing that with my son. He's younger, and his older sister is just like a verbal queen at 3 years old. And so this poor little guy never got a chance to talk, and he would do the same thing. And so I was saying to my husband, we have to do the same thing. So if it's at the dinner table, what do you think? And so, but I just think it's in business. I just think that is so powerful that you looked inward and said, what am I doing wrong here? or what can I, instead of the typical path. I think that's phenomenal.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's a great piece of advice. And I think we all, as you were talking about that, probably envisioning ourselves or others in a meeting and could probably pinpoint, not that we're going to call them out, as some people that either A, do that, or I probably do that too. And to
right.
your point, that your colleague that and the person that you identified was also probably feeling very frustrated
Yeah.
internally because they needed to interrupt because they felt that they weren't being heard, they
Yeah.
weren't being listened to, and probably at some point, not to overanalyze it, deep down was probably thinking, are they maybe doubting their worth of being in the room? Were they doubting their ability and they earned their right to be in the room for sure, but were they starting to begin to internalize and question some of that as well?
I totally agree. You need to make sure that the people you're interacting with feel valued, and
Mhm.
then you're going to get the best out of them.
Yeah.
Well, this is positive leadership, right? It's count. So the byproduct of that is that person, like you said, continues to interrupt, or eventually just goes inward, eventually stops, and then that's the wrong, um, what is the fallout of that, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that's huge, right? And I think
Right.
this goes back to this whole, and you're seeing this a lot of positive leadership and looking within, saying, how can I be better? How can I show up better for this person so that they can do better and they can feel more value, right?
Right. And I think as a leader, the one question that we always should be asking, am I giving everyone an opportunity to be fulfilled and to show up maximum capacity? Or am I making them smaller?
Mhm.
And we should never, ever make anyone smaller. We should always be supporting our teams and our colleagues so they can be bigger.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because you get some people that are introverts, some people that are extroverts, and they don't always thrive the same way in an environment. So I always think of it as like merging into a highway. You get some people who don't know when to just put their car into the into the flow of traffic, and that's the same with trying to interject yourself into a conversation. If you're not confident on how to do that, you just stay in that merge lane, and you don't bring
Yeah.
your thoughts, which are just as important as somebody who is open, an extrovert, and having that conversation.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I
I
agree.
think that's exactly right.
Well, Heather, we're coming up on time here, so I just wanted to ask you, is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with today? Any other pieces of advice? I mean, you shared a lot. This has been an amazing experience to have you here, and I related to so much about what you were saying. But anything you would like to leave our listeners with today?
So I touched on earlier the notion of having core values,
Mhm.
and any young professional or anybody who hasn't, taken the time just to map out what their core values are, I would highly encourage you to do it. I think it's game changing.
Mhm.
Um, I think when you identify the things that are most important to you as a person and as a professional, then that helps you with your roadmap. It helps you with your compass. It
Mhm.
helps you with your decision making. It doesn't always make the decisions easier, but it makes the answer more transparent, less murky. So just understanding what's important to you will help you make better decisions, whether it's where you work, who you work for, the team you build, the leadership style that you exude, how you show up, like all of those things. I think that is probably the most fundamental um, piece of advice that I could give anyone. Build your core values. It will never steer you wrong. It will serve as your anchor. It will serve as your guiding light, and you'll have a high degree of kind of comfort inside, knowing that you have that.
I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie, that almost made me cry. I'm as because it's so true. And I
It's
think
very true.
we don't do it.
And
And I'm honestly going to do it again today because I think you also need to continue to read your core values
yes,
when you need to.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that, Helen, I think you got to go back to it, right? At other times of your life, I feel at 20, I was very clear on those core values, right? And then the older I get, sometimes things get busy and things can shift. And so I think that's very powerful, very powerful. And then you feel almost this click. Like you said, it's this inner peace that you can't explain, right? And then it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't make the decisions necessarily easier, but it's the song. What was that song? I can see clearly now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Right. That's exactly right.
Just
Yes.
discovered Heather's theme song.
Oh, thank you. We could talk to you for hours.
Thank you
Oh,
so
thank you.
much, Heather, for joining our podcast today. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. As always, please like, share, subscribe, especially on our YouTube page. Thanks again, Heather, and we will see you
Thank you.
next one.
Thank you so much for having me again. I really appreciate it. Amazing work that you're doing. I'm thrilled to be a part of it just for a brief moment in time.